I needed a mother for my sons. She needed shelter. A rich cowboy made a cold proposal. John Carver stood on the ridge overlooking his land. The sun was dipping behind the orange-hued hills of the frontier planet, painting the sky with streaks of gold and crimson. A soft wind carried the scent of alien flowers and dry soil. For most people, the scene would have seemed beautiful, but to John, it was just another reminder of how alone he was. He glanced at the small, sturdy home below, the wooden beams reinforced with local metals, a testament to his hard work. Inside, his two sons, Ben and Tommy, were laughing as they stacked crates in the barn. John smiled faintly, hiding the worry that always lingered beneath his calm exterior. He had managed this ranch alone for 2 years since his wife passed. The boys were growing fast, curious and energetic, but they needed more than a father. They needed someone to guide them, care for them, and nurture them in ways John, despite all his effort, could not. John's hands clenched around the railing of the ridge. He had tried over and over to find someone willing to come to this remote planet, to share life with a widower and his children. But the frontier was harsh, and most people wanted the comfort of a city, the safety of a colony with shops and entertainment. His ranch offered only hard work, long days, and solitude. The thought of raising the boys alone for the rest of their childhood made him sigh. He loved them fiercely, but he knew the truth. He could not give them everything they deserved on his own. Far across the rugged hills, Lyra Vance stumbled along a dusty path. She had been walking for hours, her boots worn, her bag heavy with the few belongings she could carry. Her body ached, her stomach growled, and her mind raced with worry. She had fled her home colony to escape political troubles, hoping for a fresh start somewhere far away. But the frontier had proven more challenging than she had imagined. Every settlement she reached turned her away. She lacked connections, she had no legal standing, and she had no money to offer for shelter. Nights were the hardest when she had nowhere safe to sleep. Her thoughts often drifted to hopelessness, but she kept moving. She had skills and she had determination. She refused to give up. As she crested a hill, she spotted smoke curling gently from a chimney. Her heart skipped a beat. A home. A safe place. She had no idea who lived there or whether they would welcome a stranger. But the smoke was a promise, and she was desperate enough to take a risk. John noticed movement on the ridge. A lone figure, struggling through the dusty wind, heading straight for his ranch. His first instinct was caution. People wandering in this far corner of the planet were usually trouble, but something in her gait, the determined stride, the tired yet purposeful movement caught his attention. She didn't look dangerous. She looked human, like him, just trying to survive. He stepped down to meet her before she reached the gate. The boys were in the barn, busy with chores, unaware of the approaching visitor. "Hello there," John called as Lyra approached. His voice was calm, even, but carried authority. Lyra paused, unsure. She studied him carefully, noting the rough hands, the sun-darkened skin, and the quiet strength in his eyes. "Hi," she said, her voice soft but tired. I need shelter, please." John raised an eyebrow. "Shelter, huh? That's not something I can offer lightly. This planet isn't kind to strangers, and I don't have the luxury of guests." "I have skills," she said quickly, sensing the hesitation. "I can work. I can help with whatever you need. I just need a safe place to stay for now." John studied her. She looked honest, tired, and competent. He could see that she had been through hardships, yet there was a spark of resilience in her eyes. That spark reminded him of his boys. He needed someone who could care for them, someone who would be patient and kind, someone who could help fill the gap that he, as a man raised in tough circumstances, sometimes struggled to bridge. "You know, what I'm offering is unusual," he said slowly. "I have 2 boys. I need someone to help raise them, teach them, care for them, but I'm not offering marriage. This is purely practical. You help me care for my sons, and I give you shelter and food. No romance, no promises beyond that. It's a cold arrangement, but honest." Lyra's eyes widened. The proposal was strange. She had expected generosity, maybe kindness, but this was practical, almost businesslike. Her instinct screamed caution, but she also felt the pull of survival, shelter and food, safety. And she could help those boys, teach them, guide them, maybe even belong somewhere. She nodded slowly. I can accept that, she said finally. I need a place to stay, and I can help your sons, I can work. John nodded. Then let's make it simple. You help with the boys, you help around the ranch, and you respect the rules. We all have work to do, and no funny business. My son's safety comes first. Lyra smiled faintly. Agreed. The first days were awkward. Ben and Tommy were curious about this new person who had suddenly appeared in their lives. They tested her boundaries, asking endless questions, challenging her patience. But Lyra approached them with calmness and creativity. She taught them how to fix simple tools, how to manage their small hydroponic garden, and how to care for the animals. John watched from a distance, quietly impressed. He had worried that a stranger would disrupt the boys' routines, but instead, he saw growth. The boys laughed more. They learned faster, and slowly they began to bond with Lyra, not as a stranger but as someone they could trust. Lyra also learned about John. He was firm, practical, and sometimes stubborn, but he cared deeply for his children. He was proud but unaccustomed to showing emotions, and he relied on action rather than words. Through observation and small conversations, Lyra began to understand him, and she respected him for his honesty and integrity. As the days passed, John and Lyra fell into an easy rhythm. Chores were divided fairly, responsibilities were clear, and trust grew. They shared meals at a long wooden table, laughing over small mishaps and celebrating little victories. In moments of quiet, John found himself thinking about how different life felt with her presence. Less lonely, less heavy, more manageable. One evening, after the boys had gone to bed, John and Lyra sat outside under the stars. The frontier sky stretched endlessly above them, dotted with unfamiliar constellations and two distant moons. You ever think about leaving? John asked quietly. Lyra shrugged. I used to, but now I'm not sure. I don't have anywhere else to go. And here the boys, it feels like I belong in a way I haven't felt in years. John nodded slowly. It's not a perfect arrangement, but sometimes imperfect can be enough. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the wind and the distant sounds of the ranch settling for the night. Both understood that this arrangement was just the beginning. There would be challenges, there would be hard days. But for now they had each other, and that was enough. The frontier planet was harsh and unforgiving, but in a small, sturdy home on the edge of its endless hills, a new kind of family was taking root. And for the first time in a long while, all three of them, John, Lyra, and the boys, felt a flicker of hope that life could be more than survival. It could be growth, learning, and even connection. And as the twin moons rose over the horizon, their soft light falling on the little ranch, John realized that sometimes the strangest arrangements could lead to the most unexpected forms of happiness. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the red plains of the frontier. Planet. Its light shimmered against the distant mountains, turning the barren landscape into a canvas of gold and amber. John Carver moved through the barn, checking the livestock while the boys fed the animals. Their laughter echoed across the ranch, a sharp contrast to the quiet worries that lingered in his mind. Lyra was already outside, tending to the small hydroponic garden that she had helped John set up. The plants thrived under her careful attention, their green leaves standing out against the dusty brown soil. She moved with precision, adjusting water flows and checking nutrient levels, showing the boys how to do the same. Her presence brought order to the chaos of the ranch, and John could see how quickly the children were learning. But today was different. Today, he needed to make something clear. The arrangement he had offered, a simple agreement to help the boys in exchange for shelter, was still fragile. If it didn't have clear boundaries, it could fail, and he could not risk the boys' safety or stability. "Lyra," he called, his voice steady but serious. "Can we talk for a moment?" She looked up from the garden, brushing dirt from her hands. "Of course," she said, following him toward the edge of the ridge where the wind was cooler. John took a deep breath. "I want to make sure you understand something," he began. "This arrangement, what I'm offering, it's purely practical. You help with the boys, you help with the ranch, and in return you have a place to live. That's it, nothing more. No romantic expectations, no promises beyond that." Lyra nodded slowly. "I understand. I appreciate your honesty, and I agree. I just need a safe place and work to do. That's enough for me." John's expression softened slightly, though his tone remained firm. "Good. I don't want anyone getting hurt or confused. The boys' safety and stability come first. You follow the rules, help them grow, and the ranch runs smoothly. That's all I ask." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then we have an agreement." The days that followed were a mixture of routine and learning. Lyra quickly adapted to ranch life, waking before dawn to help John with the chores. The boys, initially shy around her, began to warm up, enjoying her stories and playful ways of teaching. She showed them how to repair the hover carts, how to manage water systems, and even simple experiments to understand the planet's weather. John watched her with a growing sense of relief. She was patient with the boys, firm when necessary, and willing to put in the hard work that the frontier demanded. More than that, she brought something the ranch had lacked since his wife passed, a sense of care that went beyond survival. One morning, as the boys played with a small robotic helper Lyra had built, John approached her. "You're doing more than I expected," he said quietly. Lyra looked up, brushing her hair behind her ear. "I just want them to have some of what I missed when I was a child," she replied. "A chance to learn, to feel safe, to feel happy." John nodded. He understood. His sons deserved the same, and perhaps in helping them, Lyra was healing some part of herself too. Yet life on the frontier was never simple. One afternoon, a sandstorm rolled in unexpectedly. The sky darkened as strong winds howled through the plains, carrying dust and debris. The boys scrambled inside while Lyra helped secure the crops and equipment. John struggled to keep the animals safe in the barn. Inside the small home, the three of them huddled together as the storm raged outside. The wind shook the walls, and the sound of dust scraping against the windows filled the room. "Will it pass soon?" Tommy asked, his voice trembling. Lyra knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, it will. We just need to stay inside until it's safe. We're all together, and that's what matters." Ben looked up at John, concern in his eyes. "Dad, will the barn be okay?" John gave a small smile, though he felt the tension in his chest. "It will. We prepared well and will handle anything. Just stay calm, boys." The storm forced them to spend hours inside, and during that time, they shared stories, meals, and quiet moments. Lyra taught the boys how to read star maps through the window, explaining how to navigate using constellations unique to this planet. John shared lessons about survival, explaining why the ranch had to be organized and why every chore mattered. By the time the storm passed, they had grown closer. The boys had learned new skills, Lyra had earned their trust, and John had seen how her presence brought stability and hope. The next challenge came from beyond the ranch. A group of travelers passed near the outskirts of John's property, looking for work or trade. John and Lyra exchanged cautious glances. While these travelers seemed friendly, John knew that strangers on the frontier often brought unexpected problems. Lyra suggested they offer help in a controlled way. "We can trade some produce, show them the ranch, but keep the boys out of it. It's good practice for them to see social interactions, and it keeps us safe," she said. John agreed. Together, they welcomed the travelers, offering food and supplies while keeping the boys close. Lyra's skills impressed the travelers. They marveled at her quick fixes to the water system and her efficient management of the crops. John noted the respect she earned without needing to command it. Later, as the travelers left, John and Lyra shared a quiet moment. "You handled that well," John said. Lyra shrugged, smiling softly. "It's just common sense. People respect skill and honesty more than words or promises." John thought about that. Maybe that was true. Maybe, he mused, it was human ingenuity, care, and honesty that made people thrive, even in the harshest places. Weeks passed, and the routine settled into a comfortable rhythm. Lyra continued to teach the boys, John continued to manage the ranch, and all three began to feel the security that had been missing from their lives. One evening, after the boys had gone to bed, John sat with Lyra outside the home. The air was cool, carrying the scent of desert flowers and fresh water from the nearby creek. "You've changed this place," John said quietly. Lyra looked at the lights of the house, glowing softly against the darkening plains. "We've all changed it," she replied. "The boys, you me, it's not just the ranch, it's us," John nodded. "You've done more than I expected, and yet I feel like this is just the beginning. There are still challenges ahead. The planet is harsh. Life is unpredictable, but maybe we can handle it together." Lyra smiled. "Together, yes, we can." And in that moment, under the twin moons rising over the horizon, the three of them felt a sense of belonging, not because life was easy, but because they had each other. They had trust, respect, and hope, the foundation for a new kind of family on the frontier. As part two ended, John knew that the cold proposal was no longer cold. It had grown into a partnership built on mutual need, mutual respect, and mutual care. Lyra had found shelter, yes, but she had also found purpose and connection. John had found help for his sons, yes, but he had also found a partner in life's challenges, someone whose presence made the ranch stronger. The frontier planet, with all its difficulties and beauty, had brought them together, and though the road ahead would be long and sometimes difficult, they faced it with the quiet confidence of humans who trusted each other and their own ingenuity. The sun set behind the hills, painting the world in soft orange light, and for the first time in many months, the ranch felt complete. The frontier sun rose slowly, casting a warm glow over the Carver Ranch. Dew sparkled on the leaves of Lyra's carefully tended hydroponic garden, reflecting light in tiny rainbow specks. John Carver moved through the yard, inspecting the crops, checking the livestock, and planning the day's work. The ranch was small but growing steadily, and for the first time in years, John felt that the boys and he were truly part of something alive. Lyra was already outside, adjusting the irrigation system she had designed herself. The boys, excited for another day of learning, were helping her, carrying water and checking sensors. It was a rare sight: father, mother figure, and sons all working in quiet harmony. But the frontier planet was not forgiving. Nature, with its sudden storms and unpredictable weather, constantly tested even the most prepared settlers. And today, John knew, would be no exception. It began subtly, a sudden rise in the wind, clouds gathering in a way that seemed unnatural. Lyra noticed it first. "John, the wind's changing. Look at the sky," she said, pointing toward the horizon where dark clouds swirled in tight patterns. John squinted at the sky, feeling the slight chill in the air. "Storm coming. We've got a lot to secure. Boys, come help." Ben and Tommy ran to their father, carrying tools and helping gather equipment. Lyra moved quickly, adjusting water systems, tying down garden frames, and ensuring the small solar panels were secure. They worked together like a well-oiled machine, each person knowing their role, each person aware of the other's movements. As the storm arrived, the wind howled across the plains, rattling doors and shaking the walls of the small home. Dust swirled like tiny tornadoes and sand pelted the exterior of the barn. Inside, the family huddled, keeping the boys calm. "Is it safe, Lyra?" Tommy asked, holding tightly to his older brother's hand. Lyra knelt beside him, brushing a strand of hair from his face. It's safe inside, we're protected and we've prepared. Storms are loud, but we know how to handle them. John nodded, adding, "We're strong together, that's all that matters." Hours passed and the storm raged outside. By now, the boys were tired but also fascinated by the raw power of nature. Lyra turned it into a lesson, showing them how wind patterns formed, why storms developed so quickly on this planet, and how humans could prepare without fear. "See," she said, pointing to a small window, "storms are just part of life. We can't stop them, but we can work with them." Ben's eyes sparkled. "Like us, we're working with the storm," John chuckled. "Exactly, that's a good way to think about it." By the evening, the storm had passed. The ranch had suffered minor damage, some loose panels and a few torn tarps, but nothing catastrophic. The boys learned not just about nature, but also about resilience and teamwork. The next few days brought a different kind of challenge. A small group of settlers passed by the outskirts of the ranch, looking for work and supplies. John and Lyra decided to engage them cautiously. "Remember, boys," John said, "we're friendly but careful. Help where you can, but keep the ranch safe." Lyra nodded. "And let's show them how humans can solve problems together." The settlers were impressed by Lyra's ingenuity. She quickly repaired a malfunctioning water pump, explaining her method to anyone who wanted to learn. Ben and Tommy watched in awe, seeing her not as a stranger but as a mentor. John observed silently, proud of how she handled herself and the boys. Later, as the settlers moved on, John said quietly to Lyra, "You handled that well. I'm glad they saw your skills." Lyra smiled. "It's just common sense. Skills and honesty go further than words. The boys are learning that too." John thought about that. Maybe the future of humans on this planet and others depended not just on strength, but on intelligence, cooperation, and empathy. One afternoon, a new problem arose. A minor leak in the water reservoir threatened the garden. If left unattended, it could destroy weeks of growth. John tried to fix it, but the leak was stubborn. Lyra examined it, crouching beside the reservoir, her fingers moving deftly over the pipes. "This should work," she said confidently, and within minutes the leak was sealed. The boys watched, impressed. Ben whispered, "She's like magic." Tommy nodded. "Yeah. She fixes everything." John smiled, though he remained reserved. "Not magic, just humans using their brains. That's all we have to survive." But inwardly, he admitted that Lyra's skills, combined with her calm guidance, felt almost magical. For the first time, he felt that the ranch was more than survival, it was thriving. Life on the frontier continued to teach lessons. Lyra introduced small innovations, better irrigation, tools for faster harvesting, and techniques to conserve water. John, though initially skeptical, soon realized her methods were efficient and effective. The boys absorbed every lesson, their curiosity growing each day. One evening, after finishing chores, John and Lyra sat outside, watching the sunset. "You've changed this place more than you know," John said. Lyra looked at the soft orange light reflecting off the hills. "We've all changed it together, the boys, you, me. It's not just the ranch, it's the life we're building." John nodded slowly. "It's more than I imagined. I thought I was just surviving, but now I feel like we're creating something meaningful." Lyra smiled. "That's the frontier for you. Hard work, but also full of possibilities." John leaned back, letting the wind brush his face. "You know, I wasn't sure about my idea of a cold proposal. I thought it would be simple, practical, but now I see it's more than that. It's working because we respect each other and trust each other, and maybe that's enough." Lyra reached out and touched his hand lightly. "Respect and trust, yes, that's all any family needs to grow." The next morning, they faced another challenge. The boys discovered a broken section of fence where small animals had wandered in. John instructed them on repairs, but Lyra suggested a new method using simple materials to reinforce the structure. Working together, the family repaired the fence in record time. Ben and Tommy were thrilled, proud of their contribution. John watched with quiet satisfaction. He realized that the frontier was teaching them more than survival. It was teaching them problem-solving, creativity, and cooperation. Later, as they rested in the garden, John reflected on the lessons of the past weeks. Life on this planet was harsh, yes, but humans had a unique ability to adapt. Where others might see obstacles, humans saw solutions. Where others might give up, humans persisted. Lyra noticed his thoughtful expression. "You're thinking about the future," she said. John nodded. "Yes, we've survived storms, challenges, and uncertainty. But the real test is if we can continue to grow, to teach the boys, to make this ranch more than just a home, to make it a place where humans can thrive." Lyra smiled. "We can, together." By now, the boys had begun to truly see Lyra as part of their family. She taught them more than chores. She taught patience, curiosity, and ingenuity. She showed them that humans could face challenges with intelligence and care rather than force. One evening, as the twin moons rose, the family sat together on a small hill overlooking the ranch. The stars sparkled above them, unfamiliar constellations reflecting off the distant mountains. "Do you think we'll always live here?" Tommy asked softly. John looked at the boys, then at Lyra. "I don't know, the future is uncertain, but I do know this, wherever we go, we'll face it together. That's what matters." Lyra nodded. "Yes, together we can handle anything." And as the cool night wind rustled through the trees and the plain stretched endlessly before them, they felt a deep sense of connection. The frontier had tested them, shaped them, and strengthened them. They were not just surviving, they were learning, growing, and thriving. The ranch, small as it was, had become a symbol of human resilience and ingenuity. And for John, Lyra, and the boys, it was proof that even in the harshest conditions, humans could not only endure, they could flourish. The frontier was full of trials, but the family faced them with patience, creativity, and unwavering support for one another. And in that quiet triumph, the story of survival became the story of life, full of hope, learning, and togetherness. The frontier sun rose bright over the Carver Ranch, casting long shadows across the small fields and the gently flowing creek. John Carver stood by the barn, surveying the land he had fought so hard to maintain. It was more than a ranch now. It was a home, a place where his sons could grow, learn, and feel safe. And much of that had come from Lyra Vance, the woman who had come into their lives unexpectedly and transformed it all. The calm of the morning, however, was deceptive. Far beyond the hills, a hovering transport carried representatives from a large corporate enterprise. They had noticed the thriving ranch from afar and were curious. They came with an offer, wealth far beyond what John had ever seen. Yet beneath the surface of the proposal, John sensed their intention. They wanted the land, the technology Lyra had improved, and the chance to control human ingenuity for their own profit. Lyra was the first to notice the sleek hovering craft gliding over the horizon. "John, we've got company," she said, a hint of concern in her voice. John squinted. "Travelers?" he asked cautiously. Lyra shook her head. "No, corporate, they don't belong here. They're looking for something." The boys, hearing the unusual tone in their guardians' voices, paused from their chores. Ben asked, "Who are they?" John knelt beside him. "People from a big company. They may not understand our way of life, so we have to be careful. But don't worry, we'll handle it." When the corporate representatives arrived, they greeted John politely. Their suits and equipment marked them as outsiders, people used to cities and offices, not frontier life. "We've noticed your ranch," one representative began smoothly. "It's impressive. We'd like to make you an offer." John listened patiently. "And what kind of offer would that be?" "We can give you a large sum of credits, more than enough to live comfortably anywhere you like," the representative said. "In exchange, we would take over the property and manage the ranch ourselves. You would be free to leave or stay as a consultant." John frowned. "I see. And if I refuse?" The representative's smile did not falter. "Then we will move on." but we encourage you to consider the opportunity. It's rare." Lyra stepped forward. "You've underestimated the value of what's here. It's not just land. It's people, innovation, and problem-solving. This ranch thrives because humans adapt, learn, and work together." "You can't buy that." The corporate team exchanged glances, clearly unsure how to respond. John watched them silently, feeling pride swell in his chest. Lyra had captured exactly what he had hoped she would, the essence of human resilience. After the visitors left, John turned to Lyra. "You really stood your ground," she shrugged, smiling faintly. "Someone had to. We can't let our home or our work be reduced to credits. The boys need to see that humans aren't just tools for profit. They're capable of thinking, creating, and defending their lives without force." John nodded. "You're right, and I couldn't have done it without you, not just for the ranch but for them." The challenge, however, was far from over. John knew that if they wanted to keep the ranch safe, they had to show that it was not only productive but also self-sufficient. Lyra proposed a plan: demonstrate the ranch's capabilities to anyone who doubted them, using their ingenuity rather than wealth or threats. The plan was simple but effective. They would improve irrigation efficiency, showcase sustainable energy use, and demonstrate the boys' education in practical skills. Lyra involved the children, showing them how to repair tools, maintain systems, and manage resources intelligently. The boys loved it. "We're helping the ranch survive," Ben exclaimed. Tommy grinned. "We're part of the team." John smiled quietly, seeing how the boys' confidence had grown. They weren't just surviving, they were learning to thrive. As the days passed, visitors and potential buyers came, curious about the ranch. Each time, John and Lyra welcomed them, offering tour and explanations. The boys proudly demonstrated what they had learned: how to repair a hover cart, how to manage water flow, and how to care for the animals. Lyra explained the improvements she had made to the irrigation and energy systems, showing the visitors that human creativity and persistence were more valuable than money alone. The visitors were impressed. They had expected a simple, struggling homestead. Instead, they saw a thriving, well-organized ranch managed by humans working together, smart, creative, and resilient. One afternoon, a particularly skeptical visitor remarked, "I didn't think humans could make this work here. It's remarkable." John smiled quietly. "We've learned that humans adapt. We solve problems. We create solutions when others see only obstacles." Lyra added, "And we do it together. That's what makes humans strong." The visitor nodded thoughtfully. "I see that now." Back at the ranch, life settled into a rhythm. Lyra continued teaching the boys and helping John with tasks. The frontier had tested them in countless ways: storms, leaks, and the occasional wandering animal. But each challenge had strengthened their bonds. One morning, the boys came running to Lyra, holding a small plant. "Look, it grew overnight," Ben exclaimed. Lyra knelt to examine it. "Excellent. You watered it correctly and it's thriving because of your care. Humans can grow more than plants. They can grow solutions, ideas, and hope." Tommy grinned. "Just like we're growing the ranch." John watched from the barn, his chest swelling with pride. The boys were learning not just skills but confidence and responsibility. And Lyra, she was more than a caretaker. She was a teacher, a mentor, and a partner in life's challenges. That evening, as the twin moons rose, John and Lyra sat outside, reflecting on the events of the past weeks. "You've turned this place into something remarkable," John said quietly. Lyra shook her head. "We've done it together, the boys, you and me. That's what matters. This ranch is a symbol not just of survival but of human ingenuity and care." John nodded slowly. "I used to think humans thrive through strength or force, but I see now it's about thinking, creating, and working together. That's our true strength." Lyra smiled. "Exactly. That's why we survived the storm, fixed the leaks, and stood our ground with the visitors. We didn't fight with force. We solved problems, learned from mistakes, and relied on each other." John reached for her hand. "I'm glad you're here. You've shown me and the boys what humans are truly capable of. Lyra squeezed his hand gently. And you've shown me that humans can build more than survival. We can build life, care, and hope. The frontier had tested them in every way: storms, external threats, and the challenges of raising children alone. Yet, through every trial, John, Lyra, and the boys had relied on one another. They had learned to use intelligence, creativity, and cooperation to solve problems, demonstrating that humans could thrive even in harsh, isolated environments. As the night deepened, the family sat together on the hill overlooking the ranch. Stars twinkled above, the twin moons reflecting off the distant hills. The boys were tired but happy, feeling the security of family and home. John and Lyra watched them, knowing that these moments, quiet, safe, and filled with learning, were the true victories. The corporate representatives had come, offering wealth and influence. But John and Lyra had shown that humans were not tools for profit. They were capable of ingenuity, care, and resilience. They had turned challenges into opportunities, proving that survival was only the beginning of human achievement. In that moment, the ranch was more than land and crops. It was a testament to human adaptability and spirit, a place where children could learn, grow, and thrive. And for John, Lyra, and the boys, it was proof that together they could face any trial the frontier might send their way. As the night grew quiet, John whispered, "We've made it through another challenge." Lyra nodded, smiling at the boys sleeping nearby. "Yes, and we'll face many more, but together we can handle anything." The stars shone brightly, the twin moons casting soft light over the thriving ranch. And in that quiet glow, the Carvers, father, mother figure, and sons, felt the strength of human ingenuity, resilience, and care. They had survived the frontier, and more importantly, they had learned to thrive. The future remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: humans, when united, could turn challenges into triumphs, obstacles into lessons, and hardship into hope. And that lesson would guide them through every storm, every test, and every adventure to come. The morning sun spilled gold over the Carver Ranch, warming the rooftops and the fertile land that had been nurtured through months of care and teamwork. Birds chirped in the trees, and a gentle breeze carried the faint scent of fresh soil and blooming plants. The ranch, once a small, struggling homestead, had become a thriving oasis, a symbol of hope and human ingenuity on this harsh frontier planet. John Carver stood outside, surveying the scene. His two sons were already busy with chores, moving with the confidence and skill that only came from steady guidance. And beside him, Lyra Vance was checking the solar panels, ensuring they were aligned for maximum efficiency. It was quiet, peaceful, but John knew better than to assume that life on the frontier was ever easy. Challenges were always around the corner, but for the first time he felt prepared, not just himself, but as a family. The boys ran up to Lyra, each holding small containers filled with herbs and vegetables from the garden. "Look, we harvested all of this," Ben exclaimed proudly. Tommy nodded, grinning. "We did it all ourselves." Lyra knelt, examining their work. "Excellent. You two have learned so much. These herbs and vegetables aren't just food, they're proof of your skill, care, and patience. Humans can do amazing things when they work together." John smiled, watching the interaction. "They've grown up fast thanks to you." Lyra shook her head. "No, thanks to all of us. This is a team effort, and the best part, they're learning to think, plan, and solve problems. That's what will carry them through life." Later, John and Lyra walked along the edge of the fields, surveying the improvements that had been made since her arrival. Small irrigation channels now ran efficiently, powered by solar pumps. The animals were healthier, and the garden was thriving. Every improvement was practical, sustainable, and a testament to human creativity and perseverance. "You know," John said quietly, "when I first made that proposal, I thought it was just about survival. Shelter for you, help for me. But it's become something more. It's become a family, and more than that, it's become hope." Lyra looked at him, her expression thoughtful. I felt the same. At first, I just wanted a place to stay, but now I feel like I belong here. And more than that, I see what humans can do when we work together, how we can turn even a harsh, empty place into something alive, full of learning and life. John nodded. Exactly. That's why we thrive. Not because of strength, but because of cooperation, intelligence, and care. That's human nature. The boys, overhearing parts of the conversation, approached curiously. Dad, Lyra, what's thriving mean? Tommy asked. John knelt, smiling. It means growing, learning, and getting stronger, not just in body, but in mind and heart. And that's what you both are doing. Every day you're learning, helping, and becoming capable humans. That's thriving. Ben's eyes sparkled. So we're helping the ranch thrive too? Lyra knelt beside him. Yes, and the ranch is thriving because of all of us. Because humans are curious, smart, and caring. We're not just surviving, we're building something meaningful. The tranquility of the morning was interrupted by a distant hum, the sound of a hovercraft approaching. John and Lyra exchanged a glance. They had learned to expect visitors, but this one seemed deliberate, purposeful. A local community leader arrived, seeking advice and collaboration. The Carvers had earned a reputation on the frontier for problem-solving, ingenuity, and sustainable living. Word had spread about their thriving ranch, and now others wanted to learn from them. John greeted the visitor warmly. Welcome. We're happy to share what we've learned. The frontier is harsh, but humans can make it work together. Lyra added, we've built systems that help us thrive without harming the land. We teach the boys and we learn every day ourselves. That's how humans survive and, more importantly, how we grow. The visitor nodded appreciatively. I see now. You've created more than a ranch. You've created a blueprint for humans to live well in this harsh environment. Over the following weeks, the Carvers became mentors to the community. Lyra taught irrigation techniques, sustainable energy use, and problem-solving skills. John showed practical ranching skills and leadership. The boys, eager to learn, demonstrated their knowledge, impressing everyone with their clever thinking and confidence. Through teaching and collaboration, the Carvers strengthened not only their own family but the entire frontier community. They showed that humans could face challenges without relying on violence or force, just intelligence, empathy, and cooperation. One evening, after a long day of work, John, Lyra, and the boys sat on a hill overlooking the ranch. The twin moons rose slowly, bathing the land in soft light. The boys were tired but happy, chatting quietly about the day's lessons and achievements. John looked at Lyra. You know, I was wrong when I thought a cold proposal would be enough. This isn't just about shelter or help. This is about building a life, a family, and a future. And I couldn't have done it without you. Lyra smiled, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. We did it together. And the boys, they're the best part. They'll grow up knowing how to think, care, and create. That's the most important lesson of all. Ben leaned on Lyra's shoulder. I like it here. I like that we're learning and helping. Tommy nodded. Me too. I like that we're a team. John's heart swelled. This was more than survival. This was life, full of learning, love, and hope. Over time, the ranch grew into a model of sustainable living. Crops flourished, livestock thrived, and the boys became adept at managing tasks. Lyra's innovations made daily life easier, but the real success lay in the human connections she helped foster. One day, a neighboring settler visited, curious about the Carvers' methods. Lyra and John gave a full tour, explaining each improvement and teaching the boys to demonstrate their work. By the end, the visitor left inspired, eager to implement what they had learned in their own homestead. John watched the interaction, quietly proud. Humans can teach each other, learn from each other, and improve the world without taking or harming. That's what makes us special. Lyra nodded. Exactly, and the boys are learning that now too. They'll carry this knowledge forward, helping others, growing with every challenge they face. As the frontier days passed, John and Lyra realized that the ranch had become more than a home. It was a school, a community hub, and a testament to human ingenuity. But most importantly, it had become a family, a place where love, care, and trust mattered more than wealth or power. One quiet evening, John and Lyra stood on the porch, watching the boys play with a small robotic helper Lyra had built. The sunset painted the sky in gold and crimson, reflecting off the hills and rivers. "You know," John said, "I never imagined that survival could become this beautiful. Life, learning, and family all in one." Lyra smiled, resting her hand lightly on his arm. "It's what humans do best. We adapt, we create, and we care for each other. That's why we thrive." John nodded. "And we'll keep thriving together." The boys ran over, carrying baskets of vegetables and laughing. "Look what we harvested today," Ben shouted. Tommy added, "We helped the ranch thrive again." Lyra ruffled their hair. "And that's exactly what humans are meant to do, work together, learn, and grow." John looked at the boys, then at Lyra. "This is home, not just a place but a family. A place where we all belong, where we all grow." Lyra nodded. "Yes, and the future is bright because humans never stop learning, never stop helping each other, and never stop hoping." That night, as the twin moons rose and the stars twinkled above, the Carvers sat together, a family united not just by need, but by love, trust, and shared purpose. The frontier planet, harsh and unpredictable as it was, had become a canvas for human ingenuity and resilience. John reflected quietly. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, nor the most dangerous, but they were capable of something greater: cooperation, creativity, and care. And that, he realized, was the essence of thriving. Lyra looked at him, sensing his thoughts. "We've survived storms, fixed problems, and faced challenges, but we've done it without harming anyone. We've done it with our minds and hearts. That's human strength." The boys, sleepy but content, rested between them. "I like being a team," Ben whispered. "Me too," Tommy agreed. John and Lyra exchanged a quiet smile. The frontier had tested them, shaped them, and strengthened them. And now they were not just surviving, they were thriving. Together, as humans, as a family, they would continue to face the challenges of the frontier. And with each day, they would prove that intelligence, care, and cooperation were stronger than any storm, richer than any credits, and more enduring than any hardship. The ranch glowed softly under the moonlight, alive with growth, learning, and hope. And for John, Lyra, and the boys, the journey had just begun. But they faced it with the confidence that only humans, united and resourceful, could have. In the end, the Carvers were more than a family. They were proof that humanity, at its best, could flourish anywhere, turning challenges into triumphs, survival into life, and a cold proposal into a warm, enduring home.